Hello, everybody. I'm Mark.
And I'm Hope.
Welcome to This Week in Aviation podcast brought to you by Aviator DB. Today is Friday, April 10th, 2026.
Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a good week.
Yeah, same here. So, Hope, what did you get into this week?
Actually, I took the SR-22 up to Santa Barbara for a quick lunch run. The marine layer was thick over the coast, but once we got above it, the visibility was unreal. Flew the VOR approach into Santa Barbara, got cleared for the visual, and touched down on runway 29er left.
Nice. Did you grab that fish taco place near the field?
I did. And the line was short because the wind was kicking up a bit on the ground. Made me think about crosswind technique. Got to keep that rudder alive.
Speaking of wind, I had a different kind of flight this week. Went out to Mojave for the rocket launch watch party.
No way, you actually saw a launch?
Yeah, we were there for a test flight of a new reusable booster. Watched it climb, then the booster separated and came back for a landing pad. The whole thing was loud enough to rattle your teeth.
That sounds insane. Did you get to talk to any of the engineers?
I chatted with a guy who works on the telemetry suite. He said the data links are pushing 5 gigahertz now to avoid interference with the LA basin traffic.
Interesting how the space world keeps borrowing from aviation tech.
Exactly. And speaking of tech, that actually reminds me of the big story this week. Alaska Airlines had a pressurization issue on a 737-900ER.
Yeah, I saw that. Flight 825 out of Seattle-Tacoma International, headed for Hawaii, right?
That's the one. At flight level 340, they lost cabin pressure. Masks dropped. Loud whooshing sound reported.
Everyone got back safely after about 90 minutes. No injuries, which is huge.
Aircraft November 462. Alpha Sierra was taken out of service for inspection.
The FAA jumped on it fast. They launched an investigation the same day.
It's tough not to think back to the 2024 rapid decompression on Flight 1282. Same aircraft family, same kind of scare.
Yeah, that one blew out a plug door. This seems more like a valve or seal issue, but the pattern is worrying.
What do you think the FAA will look at first? The outflow valve? The pressurization controller?
Probably both. They'll want to know if it's a maintenance lapse, a parts batch problem, or something in the design that's creeping back.
And if they find a systemic flaw, we could see discussions about grounding parts of the fleet, similar to past safety responses.
I do. Airlines scrambled, passengers got rebooked, costs went through the roof.
Passenger experience matters too. The crew got the masks out fast, kept everyone calm. That's training paying off.
For sure. The flight attendants followed the drill. The pilots executed a rapid descent to flight level 100. Textbook.
It makes you wonder how often these drills are actually practiced in real time.
Airlines conduct regular emergency drills, but the real test is when the alarms go off at 34,000 feet.
If the FAA finds a design gap, they might issue an emergency AD. That could hit Alaska's schedule hard, especially with the summer travel push coming up.
And Boeing's already under the microscope for the 737 MAX fallout. This adds another layer of scrutiny.
Speaking of Boeing, if you want to pull up the service history on N462AS, Aviator DB has all the registration and maintenance logs.
Good to know.
Let's shift to Southwest. They've had a couple of weird incidents back to back.
Yeah, I read about the windshield crack on Flight 2414 and then the engine surge on Flight 975.
March 26th, Orlando-bound Flight 2414, 737, hit a cracked windshield at flight level 360.
No injuries, but they had to turn back, swap aircraft, and passengers got delayed.
Then April 6th, Flight 975 out of Phoenix, also a 737, had an engine surge on climb out en route to St. Louis. Exactly. The pilots throttled back, stabilized, and returned to Phoenix. Again, no one hurt.
Two separate mechanical issues in less than 2 weeks. That's hard to ignore.
It makes you wonder if there's a supply chain strain hitting the 737 fleet across carriers.
You mentioned that earlier. Recurring engine pressurization issues across Alaska Southwest, United, could point to parts shortages or fatigue. Southwest's history shows engine trouble in 2016 and again in 2025. This feels like a continuation.
The FAA is looking at both events. They'll want to see if maintenance intervals were stretched, if any service bulletins were missed, or if there's a trend in specific engine models.
They'll also check the windshield. Was it a bird strike, a temperature stress crack, or a lamination failure?
If it's a design flaw in the windshield layup, that could affect a lot of aircraft beyond Southwest.
And the engine surge could be a fuel contamination issue, a sensor glitch, or wear on the compressor blades.
Either way, passengers are feeling the ripple. Swapped planes meant missed connections, frustrated travelers, and extra costs for the airline.
Reputation takes a hit when you see Southwest and mechanical issue in the same headline a few times a month.
True, but they've got a strong safety culture overall. The fact that both flights landed safely shows the crews did their job.
Absolutely. The pilots followed the checklist, communicated with ATC, and got the planes on the ground without drama.
If the FAA finds a systemic problem, we could see an emergency inspection directive. That would ground a chunk of the fleet for checks.
That'd be costly, especially with the summer travel surge already straining schedules.
And fuel prices are through the roof, which we'll get to later.
Let's talk about that tragic Challenger 650 crash in Maine.
Yeah, January 25th at Bangor International. 6 people lost their lives during takeoff roll.
The NTSB's preliminary report came out in March, and they've been digging deeper since early April.
The big headline is the crew exceeded the desync holdover time by over 16 minutes. They were supposed to hold for 9 minutes max in those snow conditions.
No mechanical failure found, just wing contamination suspected. Ice or snow on the wings messed up the lift.
It's a classic holdover time mistake. Pilots either misjudge the conditions or get pressured to depart.
In business aviation, there's often less formal training on winter ops compared to the airlines.
Yeah, you might have a Part 135 operator with a mixed fleet, and the pilots might not get recurrent dicing drills as often.
The NTSB will look at the decision-making process. Did they get a proper weather brief? Did they check the holdover tables? Did they talk to the desync crew?
And if they find a gap in training, we could see new guidance from the FAA or industry groups pushing for more realistic winter scenarios and simulators.
It's interesting because the Q1 business aviation safety data actually shows a drop in fatalities overall.
Right, so despite this tragic accident, the broader trend is positive.
That contrast makes you think the improvement might be coming from better technology, like enhanced vision systems, while human factors in winter ops still lag.
Could be. The airlines have invested heavily in dicing trucks, fluid sensors, and mandatory holdover briefings.
Business aviation might not have those resources at every FBO.
If the NTSB recommends stricter holdover enforcement or more frequent proficiency checks, we could see a ripple effect across the Part 135 world.
And hopefully it doesn't lead to overregulation that hurts small operators. Balance is key.
Definitely. The goal is to keep the safety gains we've seen while fixing the blind spots that still cause accidents like this. Finally, let's hit the wallet story. Bag fee hikes tied to fuel prices.
Yeah, April 10th, Delta, United, Southwest, JetBlue all announced $10 plus increases on the first checked bag.
Jet fuel hit $209 a barrel, driven by tensions around the Strait of Hormuz.
IATA says that's a 132% year-over-year jump. Ouch.
If it stays up, airlines warn fares could go up 17% to cover the burn.
That's going to pinch travelers, especially families who already feel the baggage fee sting.
Some might shift to carry-on only, which could slow boarding and increase gate congestion.
Or they might choose cheaper carriers, or even drive for shorter trips.
Airlines are caught between rising costs and price-sensitive customers. Hedging helps, but a lot of them didn't lock in enough fuel when prices were low.
Yeah, the hedging book's thin for many carriers right now.
Long term, they might push for more efficient engines or look at SAF blends to hedge against volatility.
But SAF supply is still limited, and the price premium is high.
In the short run, the bag fee bump is a quick way to grab revenue without touching the base fare.
It's visible, so passengers notice it right away.
And it could backfire if people start avoiding checked bags altogether, leading to more overhead bin fights and delays.
True, gate agents already have enough to deal with.
If the fuel spike persists, we might see more ancillary fee creativity, priority boarding, seat selection, even lavatory access jokes aside.
Let's hope the market stabilizes before passengers start packing lighter just to avoid fees.
Meantime, if you want to track how these fee changes affect specific routes or fare classes, Aviator DB has the pricing data you can filter by airline and date.
Handy tool.
That's a wrap on the deep dives for today.
Yeah, lots to think about, from pressurization glitches to fuel prices hitting our wallets.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with more updates.
Bye for now.
See you next time. Before we go, let's hit some quick hits.
Sure thing. First up, the FAA gave more time for comments on the Part 141 flight training overhaul.
Yeah, they pushed the deadline from April 10th to May 11th after stakeholders asked for extra time.
The report is a beast, 471 pages, released April 1st. It wants to swap out those 1997 rules for things like VR training, digital record keeping, and a central oversight body.
The goal is to cut red tape and make U.S. pilot schools more competitive worldwide.
I wonder if the shift to sims will actually lower costs for students or just shift expenses to pricey hardware.
Good point. Schools might save on aircraft fuel and maintenance, but they'll need to invest in high-fidelity sims and keep them updated.
And there's the quality angle. Does VR teach the same feel for a real aircraft's control forces?
Some argue it's great for procedures and emergency drills, but you still need real flight time for stick and rudder skills.
If the overhaul works, we could see a more steady pipeline of pilots, which might help with the regional airline shortage.
On the flip side, if the bureaucracy isn't really trimmed, schools could end up with more paperwork, not less.
Either way, it's worth watching how the final rule shapes training standards over the next few years.
Next quick hit. Business aviation KITSI-1 fatalities dropped in half.
Yeah, 23 deaths compared to 46 last year. And the number of fatal accidents fell from 12 to 5.
Industry reports credit better flight data monitoring and a stronger safety culture across Part 135 operators.
Runway excursions stayed the top non-fatal problem, with 18 incidents reported.
Makes me think, are those excursions mostly due to weather? Or are we seeing more runway overruns from contaminated surfaces?
Probably a mix. The data doesn't break it down yet, but it's a hint that runway maintenance and pilot training on slick surfaces still need work. But we gotta ask, can we keep these gains when flight hours go up? More traffic means more chances for error.
True. The industry will need to keep investing in training tech and not just rely on past improvements.
It's a hopeful sign, though, that the narrative of rising GA risk isn't matching the numbers right now.
All right, moving on. FAA's ATC hiring plan aims for 8,900 controllers by 2028.
They announced it back in August 2025, and the April 7th update said they want to bring on over 2,000 controllers each year.
The plan includes streamlining the hiring process and bumping trainee pay by 30% to make the job more attractive.
That's a smart move given how shortages have been linked to near misses and delays at busy hubs.
But can they actually hit those numbers? Attrition's still a problem. Controllers retire or leave for less stressful jobs.
Yeah, if the washout rate stays high, they'll need to recruit even more to net the target.
And even if they hit the headcount, will the new controllers be ready to handle complex traffic fast enough?
The academy's got to balance speed with competence. Rushing could hurt safety more than help.
If the plan works, we should see fewer ground delays and smoother flows, especially as travel demand keeps climbing.
It's a big if, but the investment shows the FAA's finally treating staffing as a core infrastructure issue.
Next up, that Hughes 500 helicopter tour crash off Kauai.
March 26th, the chopper went down during a Na Pali coast sightseeing flight. 3 people died. 2 were hurt out of 5 on board.
The NTSB and FAA are on scene, and the operator has halted flights while they investigate.
The terrain there is tough. Steep cliffs, narrow valleys, and unpredictable wind patterns.
It really highlights how tour operators push the envelope to give passengers those dramatic views.
Do you think the regulations for sightseeing flights are strict enough?
Right now, Part 135 covers them, but some argue the rules don't address the unique pressures of low-altitude, high-tourism routes. Either way, the accident is a sad reminder that even short hops over beautiful scenery carry real risk.
Definitely. And finally, the former Horizon pilot who tried to shut down an engine mid-flight.
Yeah, the incident where he allegedly pulled the fire handle on a jump seat. He was sentenced April 5th, 50 days in jail, 5 years probation, and 664 hours of community service.
The court made it clear that any impairment, whether from mushrooms or something else, gets 0 tolerance.
It raises questions about how we screen pilots for substance use, especially those who aren't on a regular line check schedule.
And jump seat access. Should we be reevaluating who gets to sit in the cockpit and what training they get before they do? If the goal is to keep the cockpit secure, this case shows the system can work when someone steps over the line.
It also reinforces that mental health programs need to be accessible, not punitive, so pilots feel safe seeking help before it reaches this point.
Agreed. Okay, that's our quick hits. Time to wrap up.
Yeah, we've covered a lot, from training rule changes to safety trends, and those tough reminders about human factors.
Before we sign off, if you want the latest aviation news, and to find out just about everything imaginable about aviation, visit our website at aviatordb.com.
Thanks for hanging out with us this week. We'll be back soon with more stories.
Bye for now.
See you next time.